Fantastic.
15 minutes ago, I did not look like this. This is magic right here, right?
So there you go. Let's start it off with that kind of magic. I don't have that kind of magic. I can't look like that in 15 minutes. Fuck.
Look, this is a skill passed down from Black mother to Black daughter on how to do this quickly and effectively. Okay.
Well, because it's not like y'all are busy or anything.
Oh, we don't do anything but put on makeup and look good all day long.
No, that's all you'll do. That's all.
You know.
So my intention here with this 2-week series and with some other resources that I'm going to start putting together here is that revolution is long. I would like for people to realize sooner rather than later that revolution is long. I think we've gotten, especially in America, we talk about our revolution as this Tea Party, and then there was a Declaration of Independence, and then we won. We beat the British. And y'all, it didn't work like that.
Even if you want to go into, freeing the slaves, how long was it from the time that we started revolting to the time a law was actually passed, to the time that everybody got the word, to the time where everybody actually obeyed the law? That was years.
And I'd argue we're still not obeying laws that are on the books now. So when we talk about systemic change, what we have to look at very particularly are the things that keep us going long term. Yesterday, I sent out a newsletter with memes in it. I got some complaints. This is not appropriate for now at this time. Except it is appropriate for now at this time, because if we cannot laugh, if we cannot have a sense of humor, we will burn ourselves out. And it's so important, one, that we ask our allies to do this work, right? So Danny and I have mentioned our cultural backgrounds a little bit in the past, but for clarity, for the sake of any new people who might be coming into this series.
Please do, because I had to explain a couple things to some people. I was like, hey, my friend Briar, my friend Danielle is going to be asking you to participate in these things. They are POC.
So Danny is Native Hawaiian. My family has indigenous Argentine roots. So we're here as people of color to help pave the way. This is important work for us, and we know how long this war is. It's long, it's so long. And we want to help you be able to speak out as to what you need, as to what is going to sustain you and how you're sustaining your communities. So that's what we're hoping to do here. And Danny, if you'd like to add anything before we get started.
I'm with you. One of my biggest peeves has been that I love the support from people in the last couple of years over causes that I care about, like the pipeline. But I felt like people are like, pipeline for like, what, 3 weeks? And then they're like, I'm like, okay. So meanwhile, right now, for people who are not aware about today about the Navajo reservation, about what's going on there, I'm like, care about what happens to people. And that's something that I always advocate, is that when we see people as different, like I have a whole degree in ethics and like social justice around race studies, and so I have a lot of information that I feel like people it gets so glossed over, and it's exactly that. Is like I'm a little speechless over the last couple things on social media over the last couple days because there was all this like posting about guilt and I don't understand and crying and I felt like, but some people were obviously doing this because they were like, you're going to get unfriended, you will lose followers, and then they came out and like kind of bleh, and then now they're taking it back today going, well, I'm going to say that I'm a human, right? It went from like massive skin guilt to I'm a human to what the fuck, let's just sell. I think that's the next thing coming.
Yeah, probably.
And honestly, I feel like in a lot of cases, these are some of the people that are very naive, innocent, somewhat offenders, right? Like they're definitely experienced privilege and it's great that they look, but then taking it and running with it like you're coaching and then being so naive about you didn't know it was all happening. I'm like, history lesson. Like that's kind of where I am with it. I'm like, and did you never really ever notice that every panel you were on had no people of color whatsoever? Did you really fucking never noticed? And that's the stuff where I'm like, okay, why are we so divided in our panels, right? Like you'll see, it's like the Black Leadership Conference and the Latino, but why aren't we having just great leadership conferences? People, when we still see people as different, like honor, I'm very multicultural and that's not popular with everybody, but I really believe in our world where our kids end up being blended, that working together is really important and seeing people. And I'm still kind of speechless. I'm sorting a lot of this shit out because there's some bullshittery out there that I'm like, what? You know? Yeah.
With you on all the bullshittery. Oh, so much bullshittery. And we're not going to talk about that because it is not any of our jobs to talk about that. It is our jobs to talk about what we do, right? Because I'm tired of people talking. Talking is what gets us here. Action is what moves us forward. So Tessa, start there. What can people do for you?
Me personally?
Yes, you personally. Let's start with you personally.
The one thing that will thoroughly piss me off more than anything else, and people have done this, coming into my inbox and saying, you matter. Coming into my inbox, apologizing for all white people all over the world. You know, it's their focus. Not, hey, Tessa, I'm seeing the things that is going on and I don't know how to help you. Do you need something? And Tessa personally, Tessa doesn't need anything because Tessa knows things that other people don't know. Tessa realizes that this is a long game. Tessa realizes that a lot of stuff is coming up to purposely burn you out, to purposely give you rage for 2 or 3 days until you're exhausted and go back to your life. This is done on purpose. This is how, if you know anything about wars, this is what happens, right? And so I talked to my community yesterday, I think it was, and I was like, chill, just for a little bit, right? Those of you who are in power, those of you who are warriors, those of you whose purpose it is to tear shit up and to burn things down to the ground, hold on, because it's not your moment yet. Right? So what can you do for me? Just wait a minute. Just wait. Stop picking fights. Don't come to my inbox saying such and such is saying this. I don't have the bandwidth for that. Okay? What you can do, join communities that are actually taking some sort of action. Yesterday, a friend of mine's like, I'm in Baltimore, I'm in DC, we're down here with protesters, they need water. I gave money. Right? I couldn't physically go down there. I gave money. I gave my resources to help others who are down there fighting and doing a good cause. I'm going to need something later. I'm not doing this because, you know, I want someone to give it to me. I have things to do later. I told people I'm an intercessor. I pray, I tarry, I go to the universe. What do you need us to do? Chill. We need for you to chill right now. So that's what I want my followers, my people to do, is don't act in anger and rage, right? Because warriors are very specific about how they hit. And when we hit hard. And so that's what we're going to do. So wait for your direction and hit hard.
One of the historical references that my husband likes to trot out fairly often when talking about revolution is the numbers. So when we're looking at a large scale revolution, we require approximately 1% of the population, which doesn't seem like a lot, 1% of the population to 2% of the population to overthrow a larger influence or government. We take these numbers very specifically from Rome and from France and from all over historically, 1 to 2%. The United States has approximately 300 million people in it. So 1 to 2% of us is 800,000 people marching in mass in 5 to 6 cities around this country. We don't have those numbers. We simply do not have those numbers yet. We're not anywhere close there. So when we're talking about what that looks like long term and the people who have to hold back, it's really important, I think, to understand what you're waiting for. You're waiting for more of a critical mass than this. We're not there.
No, and we're waiting for people who are willing to go out there and be out there for a week and to be out there for 2 weeks. Not, I'm just going to show up for a couple hours and go home. That's not really, I know that it feels like you're helping. I know it does, right? I know that you're picking fights on Facebook and you're unfriending people and you're going on there and you're just raging. I know it feels like you're doing something. That's not how we create change. That's not. And right now we're looking for creating change. And change takes planning. Change takes resources. And that's what we're doing now. We're building people, we're getting resources, we're winding up so that we can make a change that's going to last. And it might not happen this year. I just want this to be heard, right? It may not happen.
So, Tessa, it hurts.
Right? It may not happen in the next 2 weeks. Okay. Again, long game. This might be years before we see the kind of change that we want. Why? Rich people got money. Rich people have resources. Rich people have these people who we are fighting against. It's like David and Goliath. Okay. These are the type of battle that we're in. It doesn't mean we're going to lose. We just got to be really careful on how we fight this war, because this is war. And let me tell you something, for as long as I can remember, we've been fighting this. As long, I told Briar, I'm 47 years old. The story hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. It will change, but it has not changed in my lifetime. From the first protest I went to till now, nothing has changed. It doesn't mean don't keep going out there, because these little hits, they matter. They matter. The more that we go out there and do things, the more people are hearing about it, the more people are getting involved, especially our young people. So proud of our young people who are out there fighting. And a lot of times, we want to go out there and do it when the universe is like, let them handle it. Let the young people take leadership. Let them do the things. Sometimes our job isn't to go out there and fight, but support others in the battle. Know what your role is in this battle and put your resources towards your role. We're all not bullet stoppers, right? We're all not supposed to be out there on the front line. We need people to do very specific tasks. Find out what your task is and do it. So what can you do for me? Find your role. Support other companies, organizations, people who are out there who've been doing this for longer than 5 minutes.
Right?
Okay?
Put your money where your mouth is. You can say whatever the hell you want to say. There are so many organizations out there that have been doing this work since before last Tuesday. There is so much out there that can be done. The question, what is it you want me to do, just gets me so fired up, as if y'all haven't already said so many times.
So many times. We don't know what to do. And I understand being willfully ignorant. I do. Because for a long time I was willfully ignorant about my health, right? It's really easy to avoid doing something when you really don't want to do it. But with everything that's out on social media, everything that's out in the news, everything that's going on from the people that live next door to you, you're lying to yourself when you say that you don't know what to do. What we really need is your money, okay? That's what we need. We need your money and we need your influence, because there are places that you can go that I can't. There are places that you can be heard that I won't. I'm so sick of these companies right now that are out there putting out statements. And I'm like, so how many Black people do you employ?
Right.
That's what I want to know. How many Black people do you have in leadership? I don't care about your statement on social media. Everybody's up and up. This company didn't say anything. This company didn't say anything. Who cares what they said a week from now? What are you actually doing in your organization to help Black people? That's what I'm looking at. Okay. Someone said, I was talking to one of my friends and they haven't said anything, and I helped them create a statement. I'm like, the fuck? Then the statement isn't theirs. The statement is yours so that you feel comfortable being their friend.
Ooh. So much white guilt. And I will certainly shoulder my fair share of the blame. I have been guilty of not knowing what to say when I have had the opportunity to say something.
But here's the thing, right? Saying something on social media to me doesn't mean shit.
Right.
It really doesn't, right? What matters is when you see it happening, do you speak up? That to me means something, right? When you are in a position of power, do you use it? I don't care about your 5 lines, your 2 lines, your 3 sentences on social media, right? I don't care what you said on Twitter, because I don't go on Twitter. I don't care what you said on Instagram. I don't care what you said on Facebook. When it matters, what do you do? What do you really stand for? Because all this theatrics mean nothing to me, and that's what it is. It's theatrics. If we have to say something, so we need our PR person to come up with something that will appeal to Black people. That's what's going on.
And I think for white people in particular, it is obvious that when it really counts, they don't know what to say because they don't intervene. When you hear someone tell a racist joke, do you laugh or do you say, hey, that's fucked up? Because if you're the guy saying, hey, that's fucked up, and I know I'm that guy a lot, you get ostracized in those social circles. You are not welcome back when you are the guy that says, hey, that's fucked up. You lose a lot of people that way. And most people want to fit in. It's important to them to us as humans to fit in. But that is where we lose, right? Is not being willing to say something when it actually matters. What are you actually doing in public?
And not just in public, but even behind closed doors, right? Because saying something could mean loss of money, loss of resources, loss of privilege. And when you have worked hard to be in a position of power, it is really difficult to say, is it worth me losing everything that I worked for this one person? That's tough. So I don't know the answer to how do we make it so that everything isn't at risk.
No.
Because for them, everything is at risk when they intervene. Now, I'm not saying this to excuse anyone for their actions whatsoever, but that's where, when we talk about change, those are some of the things that have to change. It's not, let's stop being racist. It's what happens when you stand up for other people. That's where some of the problem happens.
Okay, but let's talk, since we're going there, what happens to you as a Black person when people don't stand up? I mean,
lots of things happen. Lots of things happen. I remember I was the head of HR when this happened, right? The head of HR. We were at a company retreat. The owner was there, and this is here in North Virginia. And some of our employees were from like West Virginia. I'm just going to put that out there. West Virginia. And we were drinking and laughing and dancing and having fun. And one of the little people that I hired walked up to me drunk with her boyfriend and said, "Hey, Tessa, I just want to let you know that my boyfriend doesn't think that Black people and white people should be in the same room together."
holy shit.
I'm the head of HR. The owner came over, laughed. "Oh, she didn't mean it. It was fine. It's nothing to worry about." Did not stand up. Did not allow me to do anything disciplinary to this person. I just had to suck it up. These are the things that happen. I didn't stay there very long.
Well, why the fuck would you?
Did not stay there very long. Microaggressions all day, every day. Realizing that me, the head of HR, the head of the department, was getting paid much less than the other. I was the only Black person in leadership, getting paid much less than everybody else. Got way more work, way more responsibility, people looking over my shoulder at every single thing that I did. And when they realized that I was uncomfortable, literally forced me out, gaslighting me. This is what happens when you don't stand up for Black women and Black men, especially in the workplace. We lose opportunities, we lose jobs, we have to swallow our pride. You know, I got teased for wearing my hair naturally. Just all these things happened in the workplace. A rap song could come up. Contessa, can you teach me the words of this rap song? What
the fuck?
What makes you think I know the words? Tessa, teach me how to do this dance. What does it mean when Black folks say this, that, and the other? This is the shit that I deal with every day. You know, fortunately, I work for myself now, and I don't have to deal directly with it. But the things I do have to deal with, oh, we see that there's Black people on your page. Is this for Black folks only?
If it doesn't feel like it's for you, then it's not for you. And you should just scroll past. But I did think from that, there is, I think, something very actionable that our white friends in particular here can maybe take a lesson and learn from. I'd really like to hear more people talking about their salary in the workplace. And I'm not talking about entrepreneurs talking about their $500,000 fucking payday. I'm talking about normal people in the workplace who don't talk about how much they make. And what that actually does is it creates an enforced culture that keeps Blacks and minorities and women from making as much as their peers are making. So we can really we should start talking about how much money we make, not as a point of shame, but as a point of negotiation. Because if Bob over there is making twice your salary, somebody should fucking be held accountable for that.
Exactly. And how would we ever know unless we are allowed to have these conversations without being punished?
Uh-huh.
And we don't know. I have no idea that Bob's making twice as much as I am for doing the same exact thing, or for me doing twice as much work as Bob is doing. I'm taking home work every single weekend and Bob's golfing. I don't see how this is fair, you know?
When we don't talk about the money. And
about the money.
I think for me, that is something I see over and over. When we're not talking about the money, we are hiding where the power is, because that's where the power is.
Absolutely. You know, money equals resources and power and opportunities. And when people of power hold back money and opportunities and resources from Black people, that's, you know, kind of where we're at right now. We're tired of being held back financially, tired of being held back with opportunities. We're tired of not feeling safe in our neighborhoods. You came into our neighborhood, bought up all of our property, so forcing many of us out, and then call the cops on us for doing the same thing we were doing before you got here. Make that make sense.
I cannot. And when white people call the cops on you, it is so frequently a death sentence these days.
It is. The last time I got stopped by a cop for speeding, and it wasn't even that fast, my daughter was in the car and she was visibly shaking in the car next to me because she did not know whether or not we were going to get yanked out of the car. She did not know if we were going to get beaten. She did not know if we were going to get shot. She didn't know what was going to happen to us. All she knew is there was a white cop on the outside of our car who had power, and we didn't. I think a lot about my son, who is 30, who, you know, has autism and intellectual disability. And if someone he doesn't know gives him an order, he doesn't care who he is. He's not going to listen. So what happens when a cop tells us to stop, to lay down on our bellies on the ground with our hands behind our head, and my son doesn't? What happens? These are the things that I am afraid of for my own family, and it should not be. No. So how do you help people like my son? How do you help children that have autism? I have an organization. Seriously, start there. You know, a lot of our parents, caregivers, children who are going to go to our summer camp are Black women, Black parents, Black caregivers, Black children. Why? Because they see me and they say, she understands what I'm going through. I'm looking for a safe place where that we can be, vent, talk about things that matter. So we just don't talk about diagnoses and things like that. We talk about what our life is like. We talk about what it's like to have a white therapist come into our home and teach our Black kids things like speech, showing them pictures on cards that don't relate to our life. They're like, you know, your kid doesn't know what this means. Why would they? That's not a part of our life. Why would they know what this word means, or this action, or this picture? This picture doesn't even look like them. Why would they relate to things like that? And so having a therapist, a Black therapist in your home is important. We had a situation where the therapist was reading a book about monkeys, right? And she didn't understand. So she starts saying, oh, look at you, you're a little monkey. You're such a cute little monkey. You don't say that to Black kids. She didn't mean any harm, but had she had been a Black therapist, or even a therapist who maybe had Black friends, taken a class or two, she would have known that you don't do that, right? There were things that being in the home does. And we need a safe space to discuss those things. And you can here, because you can't do that everywhere. You can't be like, oh my gosh, the therapist came in and they called my kid a monkey. Oh, there's nothing wrong with that. Monkeys are cute. What are you talking about? Not knowing the history of why you don't do that. Why you don't use flashcards with little Black kids eating watermelon. You don't do things like that. Why you don't talk about dinner. You asked, is fried chicken your favorite food? You don't say things like that. What do you like to drink, red Kool-Aid? These are things that happen. I know, you're shaking your head like unbelievable, but it's true.
No, it's totally I believe you. I hate it for you. So I've pinned Unpuzzled so that people can go and donate, because summer camp is starting soon, and this is certainly an incredible resource for people to actually put their money where their mouth is.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, we're doing robotics. Like, how many, and I hate to say this, my son didn't have an opportunity to have a robotics class in his community because we didn't have Black teachers in our Black schools who could teach this level of a robotics class. We didn't have the funding, we didn't have the resources, we didn't have that, so they didn't have this opportunity. And so I'm really thankful that we have teachers and educators who've come from all different backgrounds who are willing to teach. And I must say that our robotics STEM teacher is Black, you know, and, you know, she's able to come in and teach our campers something that they may not have the experience or may not have the opportunity to do in the schools where they go to school, in their neighborhoods. I know.
So summer camp, we're very excited about that.
Very excited about summer camp.
Let's talk about what education looks like for our children, because this is where we get them, right? We get them when they're young. What do you want me teaching my white children? What do you want me to know that will be most beneficial to you?
I would like for you to teach your white kids, number one, that race exists. There's no, I don't see color, everybody's the same, because it's not, right? If you teach your child that, yes, my child is Black, my child does look different on the outside, but on the inside, we're all the same, and it's okay to play with them and do the things that you do with all of your other friends. That's where we start. We don't start by denying that there's differences. We start by saying, yes, there are differences, but it doesn't stop us from being friends. And that goes the same with kids that have disabilities. We don't ignore the fact that they're disabled, right? We don't ignore the fact that they're different. We address it. Yes, they are. They may speak a little differently. They may not be able to see. They may speak in sign language, right? But it doesn't stop us from sitting here at this table and playing together. Why are they different? Oh, because their parents were born here, their parents were born there, whatever, right? But they are different. And it is okay to be different, because even you and your brother at home, or you and your sister at home, you guys are different. But it still doesn't mean that you can't love one another. And what I want you to teach your children is to stand up for Black kids. Stand up for them at school. And sometimes it can be scary, I know, but it comes from home. If they see you as mom and dad and caregivers doing it, they will do it too. If they hear you laughing at inappropriate racist jokes at your friends, they're going to do it too. If they hear you accidentally slip the N word out, guess what? They're gonna do it too. So it starts from training them as they're little, going up.
Danny, do you have anything?
No, I think I'm processing a lot of. I'm still just. I think I'm just overwhelmed visually by trauma, by a lot of things. So, for me, just to sit back and hear a different perspective on some thoughts, because I actually left my last canoe club, and I didn't. I think that there's a tendency in both Native and island communities to Chief Joseph's the whole fucking thing, right? Like, I think there's a tendency to be like, just take it, and we talk amongst ourselves. But I left my last canoe club because one of the really popular guys that had been in there for 20 years was like, oh, Hawaiians, they love to chant that Ikumamau shit. And I was like, what? Ikumamau is like a gathering chant, and people do chant, they pray it. Like, there's a lot of things that are included culturally in the events. And I was like, I can't be here. And it happened 3 times, but I didn't say anything. And I was kind of like, because it when you say something, and I told other people why, like the board and that kind of thing, when I left, but I was like, I'm not going to change them. This guy's 53 years old and he doesn't give a shit. And so I feel inspired, because I think a lot of times I have been like, after I told my story of like Marty getting killed, after he was shot 30 times by the police, and he didn't charge a police barricade, people, like, he was in the wrong. But if you don't think they fucking enjoyed every moment of that, you're wrong. They did. They were looking for him. He was a known, and he had embarrassed them because he had snuck on and off the reservation, and they couldn't catch him. And when he finally charged the barricade on a motorcycle 30 times.
30 times is a little excessive.
It is. And there was no uproar. We had a funeral, and I went back a couple years ago to leave some flowers on his grave. And there next to his dad was his son. And he's my age. So the 20-year-old, the 60-year-old, the 45-year-old, all the Georges. And so it's hard to talk about, because same with this case, anytime when someone's in custody, it's like, well, they're a criminal. Yes, and wouldn't you hope that when you're in custody that everybody's going to play by the rules, right? That you have these rights that we say, and that you trust that the person who's got you in handcuffs for the thing that you've done, that may or may not have done when you're in custody, that you are not in fear of your life, And most people don't get that. I think that's where they don't get that. Like, they're like, the police are fair. And I have not personally had any bad experiences with police because I am ambiguous. I am. I mostly, when I get a tan and I get messed with, that was more Southern California, and they just start off with Spanish. I was like, and that's the problem right there, right? You look at people, you make decisions. And so I want to thank you for that, because I think it is important that we speak up even in these small ways. I do think like that, like just the island community tends to be a little bit quiet, except for the Mauna Kea protests. And what does that effect have is that all of a sudden you have people up at Mauna Kea, they've done no violence, none, but they're not being treated very well. I don't think, no one's listening.
I do want to say this, right? So there's a difference between white people speaking up when it comes to racism and racist acts, and then Black people and people of color speaking up to people in power. There's a very big difference in doing that, right? And I will see some really fucked up shit on Facebook, and a lot of times I won't say anything. Why? I'm not an educator, right? It's not my job to educate you on the fucked up shit that you're doing. Some people are, and if that is who you are, you can go out and spend your time and energy educating and training and all of that. That's not what I do. I tear shit up. So if I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna hurt your fucking feelings. And a lot of times Spear's like, no. Don't say that, right? So that's not my job to educate you. I'm not here to spend my bandwidth and my energy trying to change someone who doesn't want to change. That's not what I do, right? So if you're in a situation and you're standing up and should I say something, should I not? That's a personal decision, and I'm not going to blame you as a person of color for not standing up to someone of power. I'm not going to blame you for that. I will blame your friend that's standing next to them, allowing that to happen. That I will do, because we have a different set of consequences for standing up. And sometimes it's best just to shut up and go about your business or find an exit plan.
I think it's important to acknowledge when you grow up with institutionalized racism, your response is going to be different. I was 17 years old and I had a brown Ford Bronco, and it was 1997, and it was a terrible time to be a brown person who owned a Ford Bronco. And when I got pulled over, and my response to that trauma was to not go outside for 4 years afterwards, because I figured if I looked whiter, I might have been treated differently. When 10 years later, I was pulled over without a driver's license and a whole lot less melanin in my skin, and then I was escorted home, I realized how much of a difference that was. And I realized how much of my humanity is taken for granted when it's attached to the color of my skin. And for people who live with that trauma and grow up with that trauma, our response is not going to be the same as someone who does not. Now, for white people, it's important to emphasize, don't put yourself in there if you don't have the money for bail. Like, I appreciate you stepping in, but there too needs to be an actual appropriate response. Don't step in if you aren't willing to accept the consequences. Understand what standing up to institutionalized systems of power actually looks like. And it's great to be mad on Facebook, but that's not going to do any of us any good. What you actually need to do is understand how to say no to these people. And for that, We're back to the money. We keep coming back to the money because it's about the money. We need money for bail. We need money. And what I'm hearing in a number of protests currently now is that the police are confiscating phones and not giving them back. What that means is that they're trying to prevent people from organizing further. So don't take your phone with you if you're going, but have somebody to call. You guys have to help carry that banner, and you have to do it intelligently. You can't just flame out in rage.
No, and I've been telling people, stop this flaming out in rage. That's not helping anybody. I know you're angry. I know you want to do something. I know you want to blame everybody. That's not the way to do this. That has never been the way to do anything. Make sure your anger is targeted towards the right people. And chances are it's not your next door neighbor. Chances are that's not the person you're really angry at, right? You're angry at the people who are making laws and not passing the laws, and people who are in charge of these huge corporations who have the power and the money to really create change. Those are the people that you're angry about. So John next door who owns a little flower shop, you're not mad at him. Leave him alone. Leave John alone. Unless John is out there cussing you out and calling you names, leave John alone.
Well, it makes me think of like our biggest attorney in town, and I know he meant this with the best of hearts, but it was worded badly. Was that he's like, I'm so glad we don't have any prejudice against any Black businesses in Bend. And I was like, he meant because it's such a loving place. It is very, very loving. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of issues for people. It is not the place I was as a kid where my cousins were repeatedly beat up. And you know, I think it was great, but he's just like, and he's a big attorney in town. And I thought, shit, you know, like, and he was trying to like, hey, you guys, like as an experienced person in the law, we haven't had to, it just went so bad. It spiraled so quickly.
I know, and it makes me feel bad for people who really are trying to come from a good place, but we're so angry that we're raging everywhere, and there's so many casualties, right? And so they're like, well, why should I stand up for you when you just dragged me everywhere? And it's unfortunate because maybe now if we need them to stand up, maybe they won't. We have to think about these things when we're dragging people on social media, because we really don't know. You may not know that they just donated $100,000. You have no idea. You have no idea what they are doing behind the scenes because you're so busy fighting people on social media where social media doesn't even count.
And fighting people on social media, while it may feel good in the moment, is unlikely to do you any favors or gather you any allies. Now, should we be calling out the racists? The actual racists? Yeah, you know, go right ahead with that. I'm not personally going to be naming names because I have just been blocking and deleting and moving on with my life. But bless the women who are calling these people out so I can narrow down my friends list. That's great.
But someone who stumbled over their words in an attempt to apologize, they're not racist. Leave them alone. Focus your energy where it really needs to be, you know?
Yeah, my horse show community has said nothing. And I'll tell you what, I have noticed a lot of it was like, I don't understand why people are burning down Seattle. I'm like, And a couple of people, there's a very nice neighborhood east of Seattle called Bellevue. It's a very, very posh neighborhood. It is right north of it is where like Bill Gates lives, right? And it was like not a typical afternoon, and there was like tear gas and riots. I was like, what does this mean? I lost my point when I saw the visual. was that they're not, people are not weighing in at all. Like, and what's noticeable is these are the people who own Microsoft, people whose children make major motion pictures, people who own Maytag, people who own Kiehl's, people who own, I mean, these kind of companies blip on the radar. And that, I think, is huge, because you're talking about people who have the power to buy an entire island from us, right? Yes. So that's a big.
But we're here on Facebook fighting small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's my point. It's like the people who, to see the part that does break my heart is my friends protested in Seattle, and they said it was really beautiful. They went down and just held signs, and police, peacefully protested. And then once the curfew was over, she said that it was like a swarm of different people that were not part of that original group. I don't really know what's going on. I do have a lot of curiosity about, what do you think is there, the looting part of the desperation by some people, or is looting, because I lived in Seattle during the Rodney King riots, and I felt like those had a different flavor to me than these do, but I don't know.
I hate to be a conspiracy theorist, but God damn it, if I don't personally feel like a lot of the looting is driven by external forces, and I can't put my finger on why I feel that way, just that I think that fringe elements, and I'm going to be real honest here, fringe elements on both sides, people, are the ones who are responsible here. But if you look at the arrests in Minneapolis in particular, they're all white people. So I just can't lend a lot of credence to the idea at this time that it is Black folk who are burning up their neighborhoods. It is people coming in and and looting and causing wanton destruction. And we can put that on a lot of people for a lot of reasons. But at this point in time, it feels very much not yes. God, the orange one is blaming Antifa, right? But there's probably some truth to that too, just in the anarchist burn it all down to the ground types, right? There's enough of those to come in and throw bricks. There's enough of those to be happy to come in and throw bricks, just as there are plenty of people on the other side that are coming in and throwing bricks because they're in Black neighborhoods, and hell yeah, let's get them.
Right. I don't believe that the protesters are looting. Mm-mm. I believe these are two different events happening in the same place.
Because it feels like, at least up around where we are, both of the protests, the marches were orchestrated through the downtown, through the financial centers, which makes a lot of sense. And then that was where the looting and rioting started. Now, mind you, in both cases, they were going to the justice or the police centers, right? So they were headed towards the courthouses and those kind of things. That makes a lot of sense. Whereas I did see in LA that like they were looting the Grove, right? There was looting in the Grove, and it was really, the coverage was fantastic because they news had embedded people in both directions, in both the protester side and behind the police. It was some of the best reporting I've ever seen. This live feed I watched as they closed the lines. It was great to see. I just thought it was really fair coverage to see what people, and you could hear what people were saying. You could hear what their concerns were. You could see who was participating. You could see how the police were acting. And it was great. I think they maybe shot themselves. In some ways, you could tell there's a certain persona that becomes a policeman, but it was really interesting to watch when the coverage has been really good, because I think the coverage also affects, being from the news, how people are responding. They're building cases one way or the other, right? So thank God we have phones that are showing what's actually happening, and really
Yeah, because don't feel like the news is on your side or doing you any favors right now in most cases. But
And that's what that's why there's, you know, confiscating phones and things like that, not only to keep you from gathering and planning things, but to hide the truth about what's really happening on the front lines, and keeping you from recording it and posting it and letting people know the truth, because now they can spin it however they want to, because you don't know what's going on. I've avoided a lot of the news and the footage and things like that, because I don't want to hear their version of the truth. I really don't. Because I already, again, I've been around for a minute. I know how this goes.
it does not get spun well on either side, no matter how you're looking at it. And the lack of humanity is what is always most striking to me in any of these stories, whether we're talking about what happens on the reservation with protests there around the pipeline, whether we're talking about any of our Black brothers who are just, I don't know, existing.
Trying to breathe.
We certainly don't talk about our Black sisters who are arrested, detained, raped, and then abandoned because nobody's coming for them. And those numbers are endemic. And even when we talk about this stuff, in all that's going on right now, we are not going to be talking a whole lot about Black women and what happens to them by police. So when we're having these conversations, I think the most important thing you can do is just try and keep an open mind, because you don't have all the information because they're not giving it to you.
No, and again, support organizations that's been doing this for a long time. Listen to what they are saying, listen to what they need, listen to the stories from Black women, from Black men, about the things that are actually happening to them that you will not see in the news, that they're not going to talk about in the magazines. This is real life every day. And we're tired and we are angry as hell.
And I think that's the right place to leave it. Thank you, Tessa. I really cannot tell you how grateful we are for your time today and just being here with us in this space. We are going to be sharing the hell out of this, and we're going to be doing this for 2 weeks. So if you decide you've got more, we will be here at any time. Thank you, my dear, and thank you all.